Okay, what's up, everybody? Today we are doing our first interview live stream series. We are here with Josh's Car Corner.
Hello.
You want to go ahead and tell them what your channel is about to start off with?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Josh, and I have a channel called Josh's Car Corner that I've been doing since about late 2010. Basically, it centers around the ownership of my Pontiac GTO that I've had since about the same time. And kind of got the idea from watching Jay Leno's Garage and kind of spun it off from there. And what people are most drawn to is the DIY stuff that I do, but I also go to racing events with it. I go to car shows. I've gone on road trips. And the whole show is just about the passion for cars, and especially for the Holden cars that I personally enjoy, that and the G8 and the Chevy SS, which are all the Australian imported GM cars. And I have a lot of friends who own them, and they appear in the show. And it's just about getting together and having a good time with these rare and unique Holden cars that are a lot of fun to drive.
Nice. Okay, so for first question, how did you get into cars?
That question I've asked myself a lot, because my parents growing up were not really big car people, and I didn't really have that many big car influences in my family, except for one uncle who I remember had a 76 Firebird, and he and his cousin and my cousin painted ghost flames on it one time and tried to make it look really cool. But he was like the only car person in my life. I don't know. I've always just loved the sound of an engine turning. And my earliest childhood memory is being 4 years old and my father buying a brand new Ford F-150 with a straight 6 on the floor from the local Ford dealer, and me riding home with him in it. And most of my childhood was spent in that truck. And finally at age 11, he finally let me drive it for the first time, and I learned how to drive. And then it just all took off from there. After that, I wanted to work on them. I wanted to learn everything I could about them. And I mean, I've had a dozen different cars over the years, and they've all been cool for one reason or another to me. And now the GTO is just the top. It's the best car I've ever owned, and I'll own it for quite a long time, because it's taught me a lot about cars. All my cars have taught me something, but it's just a passion for it. And I couldn't really tell you where it started, but I just know that it's the one thing that I'm always drawn to. I'm always hooked on, and I've always got fire for to have some fun with.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that truck was
How frustrating is it to find a shirt that fits just
Sorry,
This portion of Jay's Chill will be brought to you by
okay, so I'm assuming the car you learned to drive on was that truck, I'm assuming?
Absolutely, yeah. Dad let me drive for the first time when I was 11 years old, and it just took off from there. And then for the next 5 years, he let me drive it back in the fields when I got done doing all my homework. So I learned to drive stick at 11, and it was a blast.
Yeah, I bet. Like, I haven't learned to drive stick yet, unfortunately. So
it's a dying art, man.
I know. Like, I haven't driven one. I just want to so bad.
Well, I think it's less than 6% of new cars made even have the option of a manual transmission. So you almost have to go.
Which is pretty unfortunate.
It is.
I thought it was funny how in the old days the manuals were more fuel efficient than the automatics, and now it's the opposite.
Yeah. Well, they're such slush boxes, but now they've got 8 and 10 gears, and it's just like, okay, we'll find the perfect ratio for you, and off you go.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so another question is, what was your first car?
Oh God. First car that I bought with my own money, or first car I got to drive to school every day?
Let's do both.
First car I drove to school every day was a hand-me-down from my parents. It was a 1988 Dodge Caravan, regular cab, or I don't even know, regular size, not a grand Caravan, with the 2.5 liter gutless 4-cylinder Wonder and a 3-speed automatic transmission.
Okay, what about the first car you bought yourself?
With my own money, was a 93 Ford Probe SE that had the 16-valve 4-cylinder.
Did you say Probe?
Probe, yeah.
There was actually a car named fucking Probe.
You've never heard of the Ford Probe?
No.
Oh my God. Yeah, they made them. I think they first started bringing them over here in '87. They made them all the way to '98. It was it was a 2-door midsize hatchback, kind of similar to a Mazda RX-7, but gutless.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what was your what was your dream car growing up?
Oh God, dream car growing up. Well, I remember having the Viper poster on my wall for a long time, like when the first ones came out. The
Yeah.
not the RT10. What was the one that was the coupe? It was the it had a different name. It wasn't RT10, but yeah, that one is what I always thought was the coolest car. I was never big into the Lamborghini thing and the Ferrari thing. I was always about American muscle.
Yeah. Same here. Like I can't really say me starting off I was into American Muscle, but that's a whole nother story for another time. It's Josh's interview here.
That's all right.
Yeah. So what all cars have you owned since your first car till your most recent ones?
Okay, so we start with the Probe. The next one I bought was a 92 Pontiac Grand Prix SE, which the reason I bought that is because it had the twin cam V6 in it, and I had that car for 9 years, and that car taught me everything because I converted it to 5-speed. I lowered it. I put a racing suspension in it, upgraded brakes, and I took that thing to so many track days and beat the heck out of it. And it was a good drag racer too. I had that. I also had a 92 Z34 Lumina that had that same engine and a 5-speed transmission for a little while. I had another 92 Grand Prix GTP, which was the rare top of the line one that had like the 12-way power seat and the heads-up display. That thing was trick. Let's see, a 98 Chevy Lumina that was just an A to B work car. A 2003 Volkswagen Jetta TDI with a stick. That car was a lot of fun. I stuck some money into that, put some nozzles into it and a chip and an exhaust, and that thing was fun. It would get 53 miles to the gallon and could run high 12s at the track, or high 15s at the track, not high 12s. Jesus.
Well, that's more like modern day stuff now.
Well, high 15s for a diesel is actually pretty good, so I was happy with that.
Yeah.
What else? Let's see. Then I got rid of that. I had a 2000 Chevy Silverado half-ton for 3 years. I love that truck. I just never drove it. And then I got the GTO. And since then, I've also had a 96 Bonneville SC. That was just a winter beater. And right now, my winter beater is a 2000 Audi A6 twin turbo with a 6-speed and all-wheel drive.
Nice. Okay, so as of now, like, do you ever do you have a dream car right now that you want to get in the future, or are you just like content with what you have now?
No, I've always wondered what the next logical step would be for me. And my problem is I'm a taller guy. I'm 6'5". So there aren't too many of like the exotic cars that I'd fit into too well. And probably what it would come down to is like a C6, Z06, or maybe a Grand Sport, because it's got the same suspension. That's probably going to be the next logical step for me, I think. That or if I can be convinced to buy a new 1LE Camaro with the V6, and I'd bolt it on, or I'd boost it and have some fun with that, because that looks like a pretty fun car too.
Nice. So do you consider your GTO a project car? Just out of curiosity.
It's kind of been that way for 7 years. I mean, the
okay. The reason I was asking is because I was going to ask, what was your first project car, or was the first project car the GTO?
Oh, no, the Grand Prix was the first project car for sure, because I bought that thing in 2000, and for 2 years it was just an A to B car and got me around. And then I out of college, got a job, and wanted to start sticking money into it, so I had it repainted. Then I said, well, I hate this automatic slush box. It's gutless with this transmission in it, so they made that ultra rare 5-speed for them. So I found one in a yard. I took it apart at a buddy shop and redid the firewall to make all the pedals fit and everything, and put it all together. And then I built that engine up, built the suspension under that car. And that car taught me basically everything I know about engines and setting up suspensions and brakes and tuning engine management and all that stuff. So that was my first project car. The GTO is probably the second project car as far as that goes, because I built the engine in that. I tuned it, done all kinds of suspension upgrades, brake upgrades to it. So yeah, but the Grand Prix is definitely where it started.
Okay, so did you just name everything you've done to the GTO right now, or did you leave out some things?
I left out some things because, yeah, I've touched every bolt on that car. Built up the motor.
Okay, because, yeah, the next question was going to be, what all have you done to the GTO?
Okay, well, in my ownership, because I'm the second owner, I built the motor up. So it's got ported heads, which I did not do, but I did tear the motor down to a rotating assembly and build it back together myself. ported intake. It's got a ported throttle body. It came with headers on it, but I coated them. I painted the engine so it actually looks nice, not like stained aluminum. I put an LS7 clutch in it and a lightweight flywheel. I put coilovers in the front and heavy-duty springs in the rear. I upgraded the brakes all around. I put a carbon fiber drive shaft in it. Put a much better limited slip differential in the back. Let's see, what else do we do? Oh yeah, the one thing that everyone always asks me about is me and a friend in Arizona put a flex fuel sensor in it and a bigger fuel pump so it can run on E85, so you can make a little more power. And then I have HP Tuner software, so I tune it myself and I modify it. Just got done putting brand new wheels and tires on it. I'm not really much for show. I don't really do a lot to dress the car up other than just the different wheels. And I just put some much better looking arrowheads on because the factory ones are plastic. They fade over time. So yeah, most of my upgrades are all mechanical in the desire to make the car go faster, handle better, get better mileage, all that stuff. Not so much to make it look like anything different.
Okay. And for everybody watching, if you have questions for Joss, leave them in the comments and we will get to them at the end after I have asked all the interview questions, and then we'll get to them at the end. Because I know, Aaron, you left one, and I didn't want to make you think we're ignoring you, but we're saving the comments questions for the end.
Don't feel left out, Aaron.
Yeah. And we have 3 people watching, and the only one commenting so far has been Aaron, so. Or no. No, wait. That was Martin. I was looking at it wrong, and the picture almost looked the same. Whoops.
Oh, yeah, that's my buddy in New Mexico. What's up, Martin?
Yeah. He's the one that actually kind of brought me to your channel, so.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I just helped him out, get him some factory 18s for his car because he wants to do this rare, I think it was a show car polish look they did when they unveiled the GTO in 04. They did these polished 18-inch wheels, which are the same ones you can get for any of them. It just, instead of being painted, they were polished, and it's kind of a neat look.
Oh, nice. Nice. Let's see, what was another question? Oh, yeah. So what is some sketchy things you've done in a car, or sketchy situations you've been in while in a car?
Sketchy situations. Well, we go back to that Grand Prix. That's the worst one. That was, I wanted to put the battery in the trunk because I thought that was cool. So a friend of mine helped me do that, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I said, well, what do I use for battery cables? Because it's so much farther away. Don't I need bigger cables? He said, yeah, go get some 1/0 welding wire and that'll do it. And it did it, but it's that thick. And it was too thick. And it screwed me over because one time I was driving through downtown Chicago in the middle of the night, and the wire got so hot that the alternator just said, okay, I'm done trying to push power through this. I give up. And the battery died on me in the middle of traffic at 1:30 in the morning. I'm surrounded by big rigs all around me. And the car dies in the middle lane of 4 lanes. And I got to push the car across all this traffic with semis around me. And I managed to get it running. Lord. Yeah, I managed to get it running, get it off an exit. It died again. And I ended up in just a really bad neighborhood. And somehow
didn't you say this story on one of the podcasts before?
That's right. Yeah, the podcast we did.
Sorry, but go ahead and continue with it.
Yeah. So the car's dead. I've got a suitcase and a laptop and all this stuff in it. I'm in a really bad neighborhood. I lock it up. I find a gas station somewhere. And I just walk into the bathroom. I'm just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And I come back out. I'm talking to the guy behind a bulletproof glass counter. Hey, is there a taxi service I could call or a hotel anywhere? And there's a guy standing behind me in line saying, what's going on? And I said, well, my car broke down and I got to get it towed or something. I don't know what to do. He's like, where's your car broke down? It's like, just a couple of blocks down there. He said, what kind of car is it? And I said, well, it's a Pontiac Grand Prix. Oh man, that thing's gonna get stripped if you don't get it out of here. It's like, okay, so what do? I'll tell you what, I'm an undercover cop. Let's run over there. We'll try to get your car jumped up. We'll get you out of here. So all of a sudden, 3 minutes later, I'm in this undercover cop's Crown Victoria. We drive back over to my car. He's got a set of cables. We jump it. We get it running. I said, thank you so much. What's the quickest way out of here? He said, go this way, this way, this way. And I did. And it was just, oh, my God. I wish I could have gotten his name or something so I could have thanked him later on, but that was just the sketchiest night of my life, man. Oh.
Yeah, I bet. So any other sketchy situations you've been in? Like it could be driving and something happened, or hey, you could tell the story about the Viper.
Well, that wasn't so much me. I was following my friend. Unfortunately, I wasn't.
Hey,
in the car.
that's still sketchy in your opinion, because that could have came back and smacked into you too.
Well, you're absolutely right. Well, so I have a friend who shall remain nameless, and I was following him to a car show a couple of weekends ago, and he was in his Viper, and we were going down the freeway. All of a sudden, I see him swerve, and he's dodging a deer. And what happens is the car goes Viper on him. He tries to correct, it oversteers. He tries to catch it, it goes too far, again, and off the road he goes, across the ditch, through a fence, backs into a tree. Just really sad. And I'm watching it all unfold in front of me, and it's like there's nothing I can do. And it was kind of sad. You're right. It could have come back at me if we had been racing or something, but we were responsible adults. We were not racing each other. So
you race in Mexico. That's where you do the racing with the Mexico Racing League.
or on a drag strip, or on an airport runway.
Or those.
Those two.
Yep. Mexico's a little bit easier sometimes.
It can be, yes. Yep.
Any more have you been in any sketchy situations in the GTO yet?
I had one time I was actually with him, and we were driving around, and I was showing off a little bit because it was the middle of the night, and I take off on a road, and I'm doing a burnout up this road, and I go to grab second gear, and all of a sudden the car jerks hard left on me, and it's like, oh God, it's like almost foretelling what happened to him in his car. But fortunately, I danced it back and forth 2 or 3 times, so I was able to catch it and save it. But that was just me trying way too hard to be cool. So I've learned my lesson since then. No, the GTO's actually been really good to me. The Grand Prix never gave me any trouble. The sketchiest situation I was ever in a car was probably that Z34 Lumina. Because one time I was tearing down some back roads, and I go around this 90-degree left-hand bend, and I just get on the gas, and for whatever reason, the back end decides, okay, I don't want to grip anymore. And the car just spun around on me, and I went down a ditch that was like a 30-degree slope, and it slid down the ditch, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to end up on my roof. And it just slid into the ditch and then just smashed into the bottom of the ditch. And
good Lord.
My dad came a half hour later with a truck and a tow rope and pulled me out, and there was no damage. It's like, okay, this is either the toughest car in the world or I'm the luckiest person in the world. But yeah, that was sketchy because that came out of nowhere when that thing spun out on me. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Any other ones, or should we go on to the next question?
Nah, we can move on because that's about as sketchy as it gets for me.
Okay,
front-wheel drive cars aren't supposed to oversteer like that, but anyway.
Okay, so what got you into doing YouTube?
Really, it was I don't know. I saw Jay Leno's Garage, and I thought that's a pretty cool show. He shows off his own cars, he shows off other people's cars, and that's where the first episode kind of I got the idea for it, and it was a review of my GTO. That was the first thing I ever did. And then the next episode, I've got this really good friend who used to host these events in the Quad Cities, and for people who don't know, it's 2 cities in Illinois, 2 cities in Iowa, right on the Mississippi River, that make up this 4 called the Quad Cities. And we used to hold this big event there every year for the Holden cars, which, as I was saying before, the Pontiac GTOs, the Pontiac G8s, and the Chevy SSs, but they didn't exist yet. And we called it Gone, because the Pontiac was gone, that's kind of what it was about. But it was the G8 owner and GTO owners international event. And the second episode I ever did was that, and that was kind of more of an interview format, just going around the car show. And then it kind of grew from there. I covered the next 2 Gone events, and then I covered when he and I used to go to the drag strip and race each other. And then I started working on the car. Then I started doing DIY episodes, and I thought, well, as long as I'm doing that, maybe I should try to teach people something about how to work on their own cars and get more people inspired to actually put hands on their own vehicle rather than paying somebody hundreds of dollars to do what they could be doing themselves. So it kind of grew from there. So I did an episode on how suspensions work and how to set up a car suspension when you want to get to that point. We did it. Me and my good buddy, that same guy, we did an episode. He's got a G8 GXP, and we did a whole episode on how to put a cam in an LS motor. So if you ever want to put a cam in your LS engine someday, we made a 30-minute kind of how-to, what to do and also what not to do. Because I keep in the mistakes. Like if I screw up, I let you know it. I don't hide it because I don't want you to make the same mistake. I've got no shame. If I screw up, I'm honest about it. So I try to be as honest as I can.
Just show like if they make that mistake, it's normal. Like
exactly. That's how you learn. That's you're gonna make mistakes. Nothing ever goes perfectly, and plenty of things I've done with cars have not gone perfectly. So
yeah, true.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it grew. Now it bounces around. Sometimes it's an episode on a car show. Last 2 episodes are about me putting new wheels and tires on the GTO, but then the episode before that was about going to the Chicago Auto Show and all the new cars that were available for 2017 that I thought were pretty cool. So it just kind of bounces around between different topics, and then there's road trips mixed in there and car shows and drag racing. It just kind of goes everywhere. But for me, it's just fun. It's just fun to share the experience. And I've met so many cool Holden owners through doing it and made so many friends through it that now it's just a drug. Now I just want to keep doing it.
Yeah, like here's a good question, because like actually no, this wasn't. I don't think we brought this up in the podcast, but before we started it yesterday, we were talking about like how YouTube's kind of in like a little downward spiral right now in the ad revenue department.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Street Speed 717, hell, even Roman Atwood, their revenue is down dramatically. Mm-hmm. So here's a good question: if like YouTube pay goes to shit, will you still make videos as long as there's a YouTube, even if you're not getting paid for it?
Yes, because at this moment, I don't get paid for my videos. And one thing I have said this in multiple videos, I don't do this to make money. So I don't do ad sharing on my YouTube channel. What I do is for fun, and there is no profit motive in it for me. It's because I want to share my love and my passion with others that had that same common interest. I know there's plenty of people out there who make a ton of money doing it, and they make livings doing it, and good for them. I mean, if somebody's willing to give me 10% off on a part every now and then for plugging them on the show, that's great. I'll do it. But otherwise, it's just something I do. It's just a hobby for me. So I don't take myself too seriously to the point where I think I should be making money off of it. And I think that gives me a good balance because it allows me to be honest and be playful and do what I want to do and not have to worry about appeasing people who are trying to sell ads on my show and making money for other people.
Yeah, like one thing I was saying to Dallas, because that's who I was having the conversation with, like I said, even if, I'm not getting, hell, I don't even get paid much right now for YouTube at all anyway, but I'm doing it for fun also because I enjoy filming car shit. And I've met so many awesome people like you and a bunch of other people through doing this. If I never would have started YouTube, that never would have happened.
Right. I mean, I think
that's the best thing that's came out of YouTube is making all these friends, meeting all these people, not the money.
Yeah, well, totally. I mean, the friend I have with the Viper, he found me on YouTube. We became friends because we found out we only live an hour away. A guy I'm going to be at a racing event with on Sunday, I met him through YouTube. I was down at when I lived in Arizona for a year. I was at this big show that happens there every Saturday called Pavilions up in Scottsdale, and I'm there with just a couple of friends. And this kid walks up to me, this 18-year-old kid, and said, "You're Josh, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." "From Josh's Car Corner." It's like, "Yeah, dude, I've been following you for years. I bought a GTO because of you." And that to me is cooler than any money I could make from ad revenue or anything like that. There's so many people who've reached out to me and said, "Dude, I love your show. I own a GTO because of you and how cool you've shown the cars to be and the G8s and the SSs." It's just like, for me, that's the fun. And that's the reason to keep doing it, is to share the passion.
Yeah, that is so true. I noticed in like your background on your left, it'd be everybody else's right.
Mm-hmm.
What's the, I guess you could say, plaque or whatever that's up there? What's the story behind that?
Okay, so this one, the Gone events no longer are happening. So now there's a new event that happens every September in Wisconsin Dells called Pontiac Adventures, which is kind of more all-encompassing. It covers all Pontiacs across all generations, but it basically, for the long and short, it's a Pontiac all-car show. So this is from the first year. I won Best of Class for Modern GTO in the car show. And then this one is a placard I won. When I lived in Arizona, I did the first ever Hot Rod Drag Weekend. So they have Hot Rod Drag Week, which is 7 days at 5 different drag strips. Drag Weekend was 3 days at 2 different drag strips in Chandler and Tucson, Arizona. And I competed in the first event, the first time they did that. And that award is for having the quickest Pontiac at the event. I ran 12:01 at 114 miles an hour or something like that. And that was enough to win quickest Pontiac of all the guys that showed up with these 9 and 8 second cars that are somehow legit street cars, but no one showed up in a fast Pontiac except for me. So I won the award for that. And I did an episode of my show about that experience, and it was amazing because the very first day, my second pass, I broke something in the rear end and had no way to get the car home. I didn't have a truck. And one of my fellow racers walks up to me and says, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I broke something in the back end. I got to get the car home." He comes back and hands me the keys to his brand new truck, and he's from Washington State, and says, "Here, do what you got to do."
Damn.
It's a $60,000 Silverado and a trailer, and he says, "Here, do what you got to do." I've known him for 5 minutes. And that enabled me to get the car home, get it fixed, and I was able to finish the event. And we became really good friends, and it's just a great time. It was just a fantastic experience. So yeah, that if nothing else, that award reminds me of that weekend because it was such a life-changing thing to have that kind of generosity displayed to me, just because I'm a fellow racer. And one of the reasons I love the racing community and the car community so much is it's a lot different than a lot of other communities. People are actually there for each other, and yeah, we make fun of each other and say, "Oh, Chevys are crap and Dodges are junk and Fords are this, that, and the other." But at the end of the day, real car guys, doesn't matter what you drive as long as you enjoy driving it.
Yeah. Like, that's one thing, like, I've noticed with the car community. I mean, yes, there's some assholes out there, but you have that in every thing. But there's so many nice and caring people in the car community. It's like,
yeah,
it's just amazing.
It's a great community to be in. And I always say,
like that's another thing I was about to ask you was like,
go ahead.
Well, that brings up another question was, how did you get into the car community?
Really started with the Grand Prix. Because, I mean, I owned the Probe in 2000. So back then, YouTube didn't exist and car forums were just starting, but I wasn't in tune with them. And then I got the Grand Prix, and that's when I reached out. And then the very first car forum I ever joined was Club GP. It was all about Pontiac Grand Prix. And back then, the cool Grand Prix I owned were the supercharged ones that they made from 97 to 03, those big rounded ones with the supercharged V6 under the hood. And then I show up with this little naturally aspirated dual cam V6 that no one's ever heard of and try to join the club. But I made so many cool friends that owned the first gen cars. And then there was an event called the Grand Prix Gathering that I used to go to. And then I went there the last 2 years it existed and racing the events, and I dominated all their little supercharged cars with my dual overhead cam V6 because I had a 5-speed and knew what I was doing. So it was a lot of fun. Uh-oh.
No, I was just looking at the other questions I had written down.
I got you.
Yeah, because that's all on my phone, so. Gotcha.
Yeah, I've had my fun with my cars. Yeah, I won more trophies in that Grand Prix than I ever will with the GTO. It's just, and it's not so much that I wouldn't say that Pontiac runs deep, although it's ironic. All the fast and fun cars I've ever owned are all been Pontiacs. I just really love the cars I've owned, and it's just ironic that the best ones I've ever had have all been Pontiacs. So.
Yeah, true. Trying to think if there's any other. Like, I know we have a couple questions in the comments. I do know that, but I just want to make sure I get all mine out before we finish.
Go right ahead.
Fuck. I'm having a brain fart because I already said the ones that I had written down, but.
All right.
Okay, here's another one. How fast have you drove in a car? In Mexico, of course.
Yeah, this was around Ciudad de Juarez, I believe, in Mexico. I reached 150. Well, no. See, in Mexico I went 152, but on the front straightaway at Road America, I went 157 in the GTO. So the fastest I ever went in a car was in the GTO in America on a racetrack. Was 157.
Damn.
Yeah.
So, what's the fastest car you've ever drove?
Ever drove? Well, my friend did let me drive his Viper once, but I only maxed it out in second gear because I was too chicken. Those things are sketchy. Yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
the fastest car I've ever driven, but the fastest I've ever gone in a car was the GTO.
Okay. What's the fastest car you've ever rode shotgun in?
Oh, okay. So my cousin has a husband who used to have a Supra that was all done up and was probably good for about 800 horses. And that thing would have easily been capable of going over 200 miles an hour. I think one time we did a little pull on the freeway and he got me up to we got to about a $140 in 10 seconds. And it's like, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the fastest car. I don't think I'll ever ride a car faster than that unless someone's willing to throw me the keys to a demon at some point.
Yeah. True that.
Yep.
So what's some of the best things you've gotten out of doing YouTube?
Just meeting people, meeting friends, building relationships and learning about great events and what other people have done to their cars. I've gotten some pretty cool ideas from meeting others of things I can do to my own car and vice versa. I've learned about some great car events, met some great, it's just meeting people and getting out and the experience. And the other thing I think is I would have never been inspired to go on my big road trip that I went on 4 years ago if it weren't for YouTube and seeing what other people do and driving around the country and all the great places you're able to see. YouTube is just a great way to just see other ways other people do things and see other parts of the world you might want to see from the perspective of not a big television network where they're trying to get you interested in it, not to get you interested in wanting to go places, but because they want you to make ad revenue and sell ads. So that's what I love the most about YouTube is it just so many people with their own ideas about what's cool and what they like and what they want to share. I see the community side of it and that aspect of it more than I see the money side of it, which is kind of weird because a lot of people I know these days want to just figure out how to be a YouTube sensation and get the what'd you call it? The clickbait earlier? Yeah. The ones and there are plenty of people out there who just make the clickbait videos and yeah, that's all well and good. But no, I love it. I'd rather watch somebody who's got a few hundred views and a few hundred subscribers because they're usually the ones that are doing something pure and worth my time, I find.
Yeah, because anymore it's harder to get subscribers because most people they don't really search for new stuff. They just watch whoever. Another thing I wanted to ask you is what advice would you give to someone that is wanting to start a YouTube channel and do that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Whatever you're doing a show about, be passionate about what you're doing and have the energy and the desire to share that interest with others and be prepared for people to not like what you do and not care because for everybody out there who likes you, there's another one around the corner who just wants to hate on you for no good reason other than they got nothing better to do. Don't let that get to you. Just keep doing what you're doing because you want to do it. And that's the best advice I could give to somebody who wants to start doing it themselves.
That's some pretty good advice right there. Mm-hmm. So I can't really think of anything else to ask. So let's go to a couple of I'm going to go through the comments and find any questions that we have. Let's see. Okay, so Martin Yapor wants to know if you have your own computer for tuning the GTO.
I have my own laptop, yeah, and I use the HP Tuner software. I've actually owned that since 2005. Tuned my Grand Prix with it and my other Lumina and the GTO, and I've tuned a lot of friends' cars with it too. I'm getting better and better at it the more I do it. Not to the point where I'd want to do it as a business, but maybe someday. But yeah, I do have my own laptop. And the most important thing when you're doing your own tuning is battery life. Not so much the horsepower. You don't need a lot of horsepower to do it. It's just having a battery that'll last you a few hours because that's the thing that hurt me the most. I'll get out there and then a half hour later, the battery's dead and I got to come back in and charge it and then getting into such a rhythm and getting things dialed in. And yeah, that's the most important thing.
Okay, another question I just thought of before we go back to the comments one is, so I don't know whether you're okay with disclosing this, but what do you actually do for a living? Since obviously YouTube is a hobby.
Oh, no, I got no problem with that. No, I work in the cable industry. I'm a cable technician. Started with Charter here in Wisconsin. Then when I went to Arizona, I worked for Cox. Now I work for a little cable company here in Wisconsin. That's kind of on a smaller scale, but pretty cool stuff. So yeah, the cable industry, I got a degree in IT networking, and I kind of started in the IT field. Didn't want to drive a desk all day, and I wanted to get out and outside and actually do something for a living, and use my hands. And the cable industry has been that, because I get to use the IT skills I learned and combine it with actually using my hands and using a little bit of muscle. So yeah, it's a good fit for me.
Okay, so another question. We have a question from 802 Garage. He says, ask Josh what his favorite Japanese brand and car is.
Ooh, that's a good one. Ooh, oh God. Oh, so I think Nissan's going to jump to the top of my list for no other reason than I absolutely adore the R34 Skyline. I think that's just about one of the coolest cars Japan ever came out with.
I like that one too.
That one's great. I've got a friend in Orlando. If you're interested, he's selling one right now for 75 grand. Authentic right-way hand drive, fully stock. Sweet car, man. Very sweet.
Okay, so another question we have from Car Guy 11. He says, can you do an episode on tuning cars with HP tuners?
I could get into the basics. The nice thing about HP tuners is it has a built-in learning curve. So when you download it for the first time, it starts in basic mode. And once you've got enough skill to know what you're doing, you can actually turn it up to intermediate and advanced levels. And by doing so, you actually unlock additional parameters. So you can actually get into more of the little fine tuning things. So it's almost like, you remember the old TVs with the knobs on them, how you had to twist them to get the signal to come in just right. So the big knob is for your basic tuning, and then you've got your little fine tuning knobs below, and that's when you get into the intermediate and advanced stuff. Yeah, I can do an episode on that someday. As a matter of fact, people have been asking me to show them how I did the install for the flex fuel sensor. So I'll throw that in there too. And yeah, I actually just got a brand new LS3 MAF, a big 100 mil MAF that I got to put on the engine, and then I got to redo the whole mapping for it. So you know what? When I do that, I will film an episode on it for you.
All right. Another question from Martin Yapor. He says, ask him if the GTO felt different when he drove cross country with the different sea level elevations.
Absolutely. And because here in Wisconsin, we're usually at about 700-800 feet, cool, dense air. Sometimes it gets humid and it feels really strong here. And we get really good gas that's oxygenated out here too. So we get a little extra kick. But I remember climbing over the mountains in Arizona, getting up to 7,000 feet. And it felt like I was down 50 horsepower. It was big. And the worst I felt, my sister was stationed at an Air Force base in Alamogordo, and I was taking her back to her base, and we climbed over this mountain range at 9,500 feet, and the car literally felt like I dropped 2 cylinders. It just felt so weak at that altitude. And not that it was weak by any stretch, but for me, being used to 450 horsepower at the time, it felt like it was unbelievable. Yeah, it's amazing what altitude will do. And I got no better real world example of that than living in Arizona, because when I lived in Phoenix, we were down in the valley at 1,400 feet. But then anytime you get out of the city, you're climbing up in elevation up into the mountains, and you go up to Flagstaff at 7,000 feet. Yeah, you can definitely notice a difference, a decrease in power with the thinner air.
Okay. We have a question from Martin Yapor again. He says, how much did that setup cost him for the software?
So I got the pro version with the MPVI interface, so you can plug in external sensors. That's how I plug my wideband in. That setup's, I think it was 500 back then. I still think it's 500. And then the way HP Tuners works is you buy credits for whatever car you got. So if you just want to do your car, typical GM, you got to buy 2 credits. Each credit's $50. So $100 to get a license for your own car. Or if you want to get a license, say for all 2006 GTOs, it'd be like $500. and then you can tune any of them. Or if you want to get all GTOs, it'd be like $800. If you want to get all Gen 4 GM and ECUs, then it's like $3,000. So you can scale it. So if you're like a tuning shop, you can just buy the whole package. But if you just want to tune your car or maybe a friend's car someday, yeah, you can do it cheaper. But the initial investment, I think, is $500.
Okay, I just thought of another question. What are some of your favorite automotive YouTubers that you watch, if any?
Oh, the one I'm following really closely right now is Mighty Car Mods. The two guys out of Australia, Marty and Moog. Those guys are fantastic. They are straight up DIYers, and they do so many cool projects and usually low buck stuff too. And for Japanese fans out there, they're always working on JDM cars. Like JDMs are more popular in Australia than even the Fords and the Holdens, just because they're cheap and economical, and gas is so expensive over there. So they do a lot of really cool stuff. Motor Trend Network, I enjoy the Roadkill show. Those David Freiberger and Finnegan, they're fantastic. There's also another one on there called Hot Rod Garage that's kind of fun to watch every now and then. There's a channel on the Drive Network called Engineered that I really love following. They actually go into the fine details. They'll go talk to like experts in fields, and so they did a great episode about what's great, how the differences between motor oils and what makes one motor oil better than the other. And then there's another one, they went to the guy at MagnaFlow and talked about the engineering principles of exhaust and what makes a good exhaust system. So that's a fantastic show. And I would say that's about it for the big ones I follow. There's a couple of up and comers that I follow.
Have you ever seen Engineering Explained? Have you seen that channel?
Yes, I have seen that one.
What?
I have seen that one, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. Like if you want to learn how to like work on cars and stuff.
He's a good one. I have watched his show too. I was actually going to mention him.
Yeah. Now go ahead and continue. I just wanted to bring that up before you.
Oh, that's
went to
okay.
the smaller ones.
That one, and then the other one, actually, one of the guys I just found it because he was 802 Garage. I started watching his show.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Have you checked out Gearheads?
Gearheads.
Jesse
No.
and a couple of his friends. He's been on the podcast before. They do work on like a Miata, and I think he has a couple other cars. I think also.
Okay.
He has more like of a build type channel. Then so does Fully Spooled. I don't know if you know him or not.
No, I don't know him.
He's
That's
got
cool.
a pretty good channel for build stuff as well.
I might have to reach out to them because I've got an uncle right now who's selling a bunch of old Porsche 944s, and the nicest one I want to buy. And I'm either going to fix the 4-cylinder it's in and turn it into a track car, or I'm going to say to hell with that and I'm going to drop an LS in it.
I know somebody that has an LS swapped 944.
Yeah.
Yeah, they nicknamed it Ellis.
That's awesome. There's a great company called Hybrid Motorsports. They make all the parts you need just to drop an LS into a 944. So, yeah, that might be in my future. And believe me, I do.
That'd be pretty cool to see like the actual build process of doing that.
Oh yeah.
Because unfortunately, that channel they didn't have like build process or whatever on the LS swap 944 turbo. But I think that'd be a pretty good, build series right there.
That's one of those that would take a couple of years because, like I said, I don't make money on YouTube, and you always need this much when you're doing something like that. So, yeah, but that is something I would definitely like to do. Either that or make a track car out of it because I've always wanted a purpose-built track car. And there was a time I thought the GTO would go that direction. Then I thought, nah, it's too nice as a driver's car. And I kind of made that mistake with my Grand Prix. I went too far toward it being a track car, and it stopped being a good road car. And that's ultimately why I ended up getting rid of it.
Okay, CJ.YouTube asks, has your GTO ever made crackles?
Absolutely. Especially but below 3,000 RPM, if I do a downshift and I don't rev match, I just let the engine spool up with the clutch release. Oh yeah, she'll burble on the way down. That's a good time. That's a good sound.
Yeah, especially in tunnels.
Oh well, in tunnels, you don't decelerate in tunnels. You go down two cogs in the gearbox and you whack it. That's the point of tunnels.
Yeah, pretty much. But either way, it still sounds good whether you do the crackles or the.
Agreed.
Another question from, well, he said he's Saline, and he wants to know if you've ever been in a Saline Mustang before.
I've never been in a Saline Mustang before. I think the hottest one I've ever been in was a GT500, the 2010 one that had that Ford GT motor in it. I had a friend in Arizona who had one.
Okay, Car Guy 11 wants to know, is it hard to tune a car without a dyno?
No. The one thing you've got to have is a wideband sensor so you can get your own readings, because that's where all the magic happens. You don't need, the only thing you really need a dyno for is wide open, so you can do it in a controlled environment and you're not constantly going between 50 and 100 on a back road somewhere. And the thing people tend to overlook with dyno tuning, I find, is they never do the streetability stuff, because you don't really do that on a dyno. All you're doing is wide open from 3.5 up to whatever your red line is. The streetability stuff is what makes your car enjoyable to drive, and a lot of guys forget that, so they don't deal with the idle. They don't deal with the under 2,500 RPM just cruising around in your high gears and getting fuel economy. So then cars bog and they shake and they judder because the fueling's all wrong, and then they run super fat when you're sitting at a stoplight because no one ever did the idle tables. So yeah. The majority of tuning to do it right is actually on the street. As a matter of fact, once I put the LS3 MAF in and tuned it and gotten the street stuff done, that's when I'm going to call up my buddy in Chicago, and I'm going to go down to the dyno and tune it for wide open and get that all absolutely dialed in perfect.
Nice. Let's see. Martin Yapor wants to know if you ever drove through Albuquerque when you went cross country.
I missed Albuquerque. I couldn't tell you what highway it was, Martin, you want to come across, because I came across from Texas and I went through Roswell and ended up in Ruidoso, and then somehow found my way out to I-40 whichever interstate goes through Las Cruces, because I ended up getting there and then going west from Las Cruces across I-10, 8, I forget which one it is, but no, I did miss Albuquerque, and I drove through it on the way home because I was trying to follow Route 66, but I didn't really. I just kind of stuck to I-40 at that point, so I wouldn't say I've really been there, but I have seen it kind of.
Okay. Anybody else have any more questions? Unless there's any stories you want to tell till we file in some more questions.
I could always tell a story. So what's a story I could tell? So here's a great one. Here's how I almost got my first speeding ticket in 7 years.
Oh, that's a good one. I should have asked that question.
Hey, that's for next time. There's a GTO group in Arizona that I joined up with, Arizona Desert Go. It's a bunch of really cool guys. And I had organized a cruise because a lot of the guys talked about getting a cruise together, but no one ever wanted to take the time to plan it and lead it. So I decided I would. We get about 6 GTOs together. We head out of Phoenix. We head up into the mountains, and there's this one mountain road that I love climbing in Yavapai County. It's a 4-lane divided, and the lanes are way far apart from each other. They're different elevations. So you're never going to see anybody coming the other way. But it's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit climbing the hill. Well, there's a guy, the guy most immediately behind me in his GTO just got brand new tires on him, and he says to me over the radio, "I want to see how good these tires grip." So I said, "All right, fine, let's tear ass up the mountain." So we're flying around these switchbacks and S-curves at like 85 miles an hour. We come around this one bend. Here's a Ford Explorer with lights on it just sitting on the shoulder. It's like, oh, God, here we go. So I didn't even try to run because I'm leading a convoy. I'm not going to run. So I slow down and pull over. And I'm just waiting for the hammer to come down on me. And I roll down the window. He walks up to the window and he says to me, "What the hell are you doing?" And I say, I'm sorry, we were leading a convoy. We were just having a good time. I guess we got a little carried away. He's like, "Yeah, you got carried away. You know, I could take you to jail right now." And it's like, "Yeah, but I'm hoping you don't." So needless to say, it goes back and forth for about 20 minutes. And me and the guy who was behind me both end up getting tickets. But then he comes up to me and says, "Look, you haven't had a ticket in 7 years, so I'm going to level with you. In Arizona, what we do is you can take driver's school, and as long as you take driver's school online, the ticket goes away." So a $500 6-point ticket got wiped off my record for 3 hours of sitting in front of a computer answering some multiple choice questions. And I wish every state was that cool, but Arizona is. So I will give props to Arizona for that, because I could have gone to jail and paid a $500 fine. Instead, I spent 3 hours staring at a computer screen answering, "What should you do when you see the yellow school sign?" Drive faster. No, that's the wrong answer.
CJ YouTube has a question. Have you ever been in a Lambo?
No, but I would relish the opportunity. Aventador would be sweet. Honestly, the one I would love to, the dream ride would be the Murcielago LP 670-4 SV. That last one they did with the big wing and the huge exhaust pipe that's like that big. That would be the dream ride.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet car.
Mm-hmm.
Car Guy 11 says, Josh, you should definitely turn on monetization, get some money for projects. Only thing you need to watch is copyrighted music.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't really, for the most part, when I do have music, and I don't have a lot of it, I get the free YouTube stuff. Cool thing is, Moog, the guy who does all the video and music editing for the Mighty Car Mods guys, he actually produces music for their show, and he's gone on record as saying if you want to use his music, you can use it for free. Just give him a nod in your video. So I'm going to actually do that for the next video. I think I'm going to use some of his music because he does some really killer stuff, and he's got that same mentality of as long as you acknowledge that I made the music, I don't care if you use it, and even if you make money off it. So that's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I have gotten in trouble with YouTube once or twice for using a song that was not of my own making. Fortunately, they didn't take the video down or take me off YouTube or anything like that. They just said, no, don't do that again. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's never fun.
Yeah.
Okay, CJ has a question. He says, what do you think is better, a Corvette ZR1 or a Fox Body Mustang?
Now, by Fox Body, I assume he means like 87 or 82 to 93.
Yeah, probably.
And by ZR1, I assume he means the 09 to 14 and not the 91 to 96. God.
I'm not sure.
I'm so GM.
I know what I'd say.
What would you say?
I'd say ZR1. I'm a Corvette person.
Well, I'm totally GM too, but I tell you what, I mean.
Yeah, like I like Mustangs also, but if I had to pick between a Mustang and a Corvette, you better believe I'm going Corvette, baby.
Well, I agree. In terms of a performance machine, and I don't want to offend the Mustang owners out there, but I will admit the Mustangs, there is a cool factor there. Those Fox bodies, they just have a look. And the 5.0 302 Ford motor just sounds different than other V8s somehow. And I don't know what it is, if it's a firing order swap or the way the intake is designed or what, but they sound different and they sound cool. They're not performance machines, but they are cool cars. So if I was going for cool, I could see going Fox body, but if I'm going performance, I'm going ZR1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay. He's got another question that literally just popped up. He said, what's faster, a Fox body or a Saleen Mustang?
Well, I mean, that's a...
It also kind of depends, because, like, if you're talking stock, probably a Saleen, because they're upgraded Mustangs.
Well, it kind of depends, because I've seen Fox body Mustangs at the track run 8s with a giant 90mm turbo sticking out the front. But yeah,
that's what I was trying to say. Like, if we're talking stock...
If you're going street for street, a Saleen's going to be faster. Yeah. Because I think the best... Oh, go ahead.
Because if we're talking modified, it all depends what's in the car. Like, the Saleen could have a supercharger, and then the Fox body have a big-ass fucking turbo that sticks out of the fucking hood because it's too humongous.
Right.
Then, yeah, it's probably going to be the Fox body.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, and you're more likely to modify an old Fox body Mustang than you are a Saleen, but street for street, because I think the best version of the 5.0 that they ever came out with was in '93, the Cobra. I think it made 240 horsepower, and I don't know what the Saleens made, but I mean, even the 4.6 in the SN95s made more than 240 horsepower. So I got to imagine Saleen ultimately is going to be a faster car.
Yeah.
So.
That's probably what I would say as well. Do we have any more questions for Josh? Because if not, we might as well just end it since it's already been almost an hour.
There you go. We've met our quota.
Yeah, because I was thinking this was only going to be like, 30 minutes or something, but it. All right. Well, unless any questions come up before I finish my sentence, thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching the replay, definitely comment some other YouTubers you'd like to see in an interview down below. I don't know who's going to be next. I have to ask around. Be sure to tune into the podcast on Monday. That I still haven't figured out who all's supposed to be in, except one person that may join, and that's Autovlog. But he's kind of the one that picked the day since he's like over 100,000 subscribers. So, when somebody big like that suggests a day, you just take it and pray to God other people will join.
That's right. Absolutely. Please, sir.
So, yeah, if he shows up, because there's been times like people say they're going to show up, and
right.
yeah, we were talking about that earlier before we started.
Well, absolutely. And hey, I would just like to say before we wrap it up that I really appreciate the opportunity, and I think this is a cool idea you've got going on, and I hope it takes off for you.
Yeah, thank you. No 100K plus cars. So I'm not sure if this is a question or what, but AutoNut says no 100K plus cars. What do you mean, AutoNut?
Oh, I think he means don't buy a car that costs more than $100,000, or it's not worth owning a car that's worth more than $100,000, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be what he means.
Yeah. Well, and I can kind of understand that because I always think, boy, it'd be cool to own a Lamborghini or a Ferrari someday, but I'd always be so afraid of parking it anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why kind of like, honestly, for cars I want to get, probably the most expensive one is going to be a C6 Z06, and that's like 30 grand.
Yeah. I honestly don't see
high 20s, low 30s.
Yeah, I honestly don't see ever needing more car than that. A Z06 Carbon would do me just fine for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I would get that shit and have fun with it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I actually have seen one in person. It wasn't in the most ideal color that I think of a Z06, and it was red. But I prefer Z06 black.
Yeah, that would be cool. They did an electric blue.
That's the thing. Some cars, you can only see them in a certain color. Like the C6 Z06, I always see in black. Like that's the only color I really like it in. Like with the ZR1, C6 ZR1, first color you think of is that blue color.
That's the electric blue, yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good color for that. And then like now with like the C7s, like Z06, as soon as you think of Z06, you think yellow.
Yep.
Now. And then like Stingray, I always think either red or white.
I tell you what, though, honestly, with the new 7th gen, I wouldn't have a Z06. I would have a Grand Sport. Get the good suspension, because I just don't 650 horsepower. I think it's just too much. Yeah,
like another thing, like speaking of colors, like the Grand Sport, I like how they have that red, white, and blue color scheme. Like have the Admiral blue, and then have the red hash marks and like a white little stripe in the middle.
Here's a good fact. Used to play Gran Turismo 3 and 4. My favorite car to cut my teeth and really learn how to drive on there was the 96 Corvette Grand Sport.
Ooh. Okay, so we were both wrong. AutoNut meant this. He said the question was, if money wasn't an issue under 100K, what would you personally replace the GTO with?
Under 100K? I think we pretty much answered that. As a 2011 up Z06 Carbon would be what I would go with. Headers, a tune, and I'd be good. And I wouldn't need any more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people always bash the C6 because of, Chevette, as I put it once.
Right. But no, I mean, honestly, I think it was better. I think it's better looking than the 7, and it was definitely technologically better than the 5. I think the 6 is just as good as they ever got with it.
Yeah, like I personally like the looks of the 6. I don't know why. It's just like ever since I watched that Top Gear USA episode where they had the police cars
Mm-hmm.
and Tanner had the Z06.
Yeah.
God, when he did that, when he was talking about like the 50-50 weight distribution, and then he drifted that corner, as soon as I heard the damn thing, I
Mhm.
wanted it.
Yeah.
Ever since I heard it when he was drifting that and just the whole video, I could literally watch that fucking part all day.
And I tell you why I would want the carbon is because when they brought out the carbon edition, that's when they brought out those new tires and the suspension upgrades, and they test them all at the Nürburgring, and then GM's good enough to put those videos on YouTube so you can watch them. And the carbon Z06 was only a second and a half off the ZR1.
Holy shit, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. So it's like the original ZR1, because the updated ZR1 was 3-4 seconds faster than that, but only 4 seconds faster than that. But it was just, damn, it's that close without a blower. Okay, that's a good car. I want that car.
Yeah, like honestly, right now, even if you think about it, the C6 ZR1 is still more powerful than the new C7s at this point.
It is, and it did it with the older technology, the old LS3 with a blower on it. Because now it's all.
I thought it was an LS7 for the ZR1.
No. Too high compression, too high strung. They needed to they used the LS3 as a base, and then they actually dropped the compression down a little bit so they could put a higher pressure blower on it.
Yeah, I thought it was an LS9 with a supercharger is what I thought.
It is. They call it the LS9, but the base is an LS3, not a 7.
Okay. Did I accidentally say 7?
You did say 7.
I meant 9. Fuck. Whoopsie. But yeah, like it's even more powerful than the Z06, the new one.
They would say it's 10 horsepower less because I think it was 638 in the ZR1 and the new Z06.
Oh yeah, true.
But I mean, at that point, it's apples and oranges. I mean, 10 horsepower at that level is nothing.
So here's a good question. What do you think they're going to do with the new ZR1? Like, how much horsepower you think they're going to have with that?
God. Well, you have to look at what they have to battle anymore. I mean, the Viper's gone. And
I'm thinking 750 to 800.
Yeah, I just wonder, what are they competing against that they need that anymore? I mean, at that point, you're
Hellcat, Hellcat Demon.
Yeah, I suppose, but I wouldn't consider those sport. I wouldn't consider those like.
And plus, it has to be much better than the ZL1 because the ZL1 has the same motor as the Z06.
It does. It definitely.
That's 650.
I know it's going to be more power, but I guess the thing I'm thinking is that the Demon and the Hellcat aren't even in the same class as a Corvette because they only do one thing. They only go fast in a straight line. They can't take that power. They can't take that power around a corner at any amount of speed. So, yeah, then it's a different category. No, I think if they're going to do a ZR1 with that kind of power, then they're going to be competing against McLarens and maybe the Porsche 918. I mean, maybe that's who they're going after because who else is there left to go after?
True. Well, the Ford GT also, the new one.
Oh, yeah, the new one. Yeah, good point. Yeah. I can't wait to see
that drinks more gas than a Viper.
Oh, yeah.
From a fucking 6-cylinder.
Turbochargers are like your Irish relatives that come to visit. They show up and they just pound alcohol.
Yeah, like if you guys want to see more about like GM talks, like Corvettes and shit, watch the podcast we did yesterday. Like 99% of that podcast was fucking about Corvettes. Almost all of it, because there was a bunch of it was the first time I've ever had all GM guys in the fucking thing.
Yeah, that's not a bad topic to talk about. It's actually an interesting side note. So Bob Lutz, who was the director of GM or one of the higher ups at GM in the early 2000s, he's the one who brought the GTO over from Australia because he went over there and they gave him one and he liked it so much. But he always commented on it as being like the gentleman's Corvette. And then when the G8 came out, he called that the four-door Corvette because he just loved so much how they handled and how they behaved and the power, especially once you put the American LS engines in them, and just a whole.
Yeah. So what was your thought when Pontiac went out of business?
Boy, I mean, if I was talking to my friend Joe, he would say it was a travesty and that the government basically went to GM and said, look, you're going to kill Pontiac because you're not going to have any more inter-company competition, and they don't make fuel-efficient vehicles. For me, I guess it was a necessary evil to keep GM alive because they did have too many brands, and they did have too much crossover, and unfortunately, somebody had to go so they could survive, and they got rid of Hummer, they got rid of Saturn, but it wasn't enough because they were in so much trouble. I don't like it. I wish they would. I wish now that they're swimming in money again, they'd bring Pontiac back, but I can understand at the same time.
Well, I don't think they can now because Trans Am Depot, I think, has the rights to Pontiac and Trans Am now.
Well, but they did go back and renew their copyrights on some old Pontiac names like Nomad and Safari a couple of years ago, and everyone thought, oh my God, they're going to bring over the Aussie cars and the wagon and the Ute and slap those names on them, and then they never did.
Yeah, like isn't Holden going out of business now?
Domestic production will be ending in October, and they're the ones that make all the SSs, and they made the G8s and the GTO, and then they got shipped over here. So orders, you can't even order an SS anymore. Your orders had to be in by April 1st. So the ones that are come over are the only ones the last ones. We won't get any more.
Good Lord. Okay, so we have some more comments now. So CJ wants to know what's better sounding, a crackling Mercedes AMG GTS or a Volkswagen GTI that crackles?
Ooh, I do love a GTI. I had a Volkswagen, but yeah, there's something about the AMG. There's something about because there's the underlying bass note of that V8. That Mercedes, I mean, they took the American V8 rumble and sophisticated it. I do love the sound of an AMG V8, I must admit.
Yeah. Personally, I'd probably pick the Mercedes AMG also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not like big into Volkswagens. I'm sorry, but AutoNut wants to know if you had to, would you LS swap or forced induction your GTO?
Well, it already has an LS, so I'm assuming he means like in exchange for like an LS7 or an LS9.
Yeah.
Or
Did I just
like
say
that.
LS?
Yeah.
Okay, he said LS7. My bad. I fucked that up there.
I absolutely adore the LS7. It's a fantastic motor, and if I had $12,000 laying around, maybe I'd buy one. But yeah, because I'll tell you exactly why. Because I have a friend in Arizona who has a GTO, and he actually built a whole new engine for his. He started with a Truck 6.0 because it's got an iron block and put a massive blower on it and built it up, and it's probably good for 700 of the wheels, insane amounts of power. But it comes with its own set of downsides. I mean, it's way too nose heavy now, and you need to have a massive cooling system to keep it cool. And he's in Arizona, which doesn't help. I would much rather have the LS7 lightweight parts, high revving engine. I love the sound of a V8 screaming over 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of the greatest sounds of all time. And so I would go LS7 over forced induction. Plus, I love that instant on power, and they're just simpler, less heat to worry about. Yeah, I'd rather go NA all day.
Yeah, and AutoNut brought up, like when we were talking about Pontiac going out, he mentioned they killed it because it was either Pontiac or Buick, and they wanted Buick because of the reputation it had in China and Japan, big potential growth.
He's not wrong with that. Buick is I think it's by far the most popular GM brand, and I want to say Buick is the most popular brand overall in China. They absolutely love them, and the reason for that is because one of the Chinese emperors years and years ago was driven around in a Buick limousine. So it subliminally put in their heads, if you own a Buick, you are this high, you have this status symbol above other people. So because
kind of like the way it is with Rolls-Royce and everywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So because the emperor drove one, I drive one, therefore I'm as good as him. It's that mentality, which is ridiculous because Buicks are crap. But
like, I think the newer Buicks are just so fucking ugly.
I mean, I am getting a little ahead of myself. The Grand Sport's kind of a cool car, although to be fair, it is a Opel or a Vauxhall, depending on what part of England or Europe you're in. And the new one, that convertible they got, very good looking, but it's an Opel Astra convertible. So just another import.
Okay, Martin said, like referring to AutoNut's question about the engine swap or the forced induction, Martin said, although maybe the better choice would be LSA from the ZR1. But ZR1,
No, he's confused.
It was
LSA.
LS9 from the.
Yeah, LSA.
LS9 was ZR1. LSA was the ZL1.
The ZL1 was, and the CTSV
Yeah.
was LSA. Yeah. And also Holden used that in the HSV Walkinshaw Performance Edition. They used the LSA. It was the HV Gen F GTS is where they used the LSA. So the Aussies used it too.
Yeah. And Martin says that Buick is being built in Germany from Opel.
Yeah, that convertible. He's absolutely right. That it is.
Yeah.
They're just putting Buick badges on it and shipping it over. And actually, some of the Buicks we're getting here now are built in China and then shipped over here.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think Chevy's going to do with the mid-engine Corvette that's been going around? Do you think they're actually going to call it a Corvette? Because, there really hasn't been much proof that it is a Corvette. It's mostly just speculation about the mid-engine vehicle.
I don't know what else you'd call it, though. I'm trying to think through their history of names of a name they could pull out of history and throw on that car. I mean, I guess you could call it a Corvair.
Hey, Josh, CJ wants to know if we can hear the GTO right now.
Yeah, you can't see it. I mean, if you bear with me for about 90 seconds, I have to move my whole rig. But I mean, if you really want to, you want to just go out on that, because we could do that.
Yeah, that'd actually be a good thing to go out on, is you revving the shit out of the GTO.
Well, I'm not going to do that because the engine's cold, but I will start it up and give you a little something. Hold on.
That's what I mean.
Give me about 60 seconds.
Alrighty. That's what we should do now. Like, on the end of these interviews, just have the person rev their car or something, or a cold start or something like that. I don't know whether every YouTuber will be down for that, but that'd be something interesting to try. So everybody bear with us and we'll get to hear it. Martin, you can't join in. This is an interview with Josh. If it was a podcast, I'd be okay with it, but this is just an interview, so this is just between me and Josh. But Martin, I can do an interview on you at some point once you do more with your YouTube channel, then it would make sense.
Sorry, I've got this big mic that I'm using, so it might get good audio, so I got to carry that with me here.
Oh, God. Have fun with that.
Right. Hopefully I'm not going to lose anything here. Come on.
Yeah, that wouldn't be very good.
That wouldn't be good. I think I'm still there. I know
Yeah,
I can't I know I can't get too far away of the house because I'll drop my Wi-Fi, but yeah, this is a pretty good microphone, so this should work. So.
Oh, okay. Martin just wants to join the hangout when we're done, I guess, to talk or whatever.
Oh, well, we can do that. All right, I'll put it right there. Hold on.
All right. I can't see shit. I don't think any of us can, but. Oh, there we go.
How's that? Does that sound pretty good?
That sounds fucking great.
Yep, so that's it. I would rev her higher, but I never rev a cold engine up that high, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you. You don't want to blow it up or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Because didn't you say it's a belt motor, right?
Yeah, it is. It's an LS2. The rotating assembly is all stock, but it's got ported heads, ported intake, throttle body. I put a cam in it, upgraded LS7 valve train, and yeah, and it's tuned. So yeah, that's the cam.
Also, Martin wants to know what exhaust you have on it.
It is a MagnaFlow 2.5 inch with X pipe.
Nice, nice. All right, well, that is going to be the end of this interview. I'd say it was a really damn good interview, especially the end of it.
Right.
We're gonna try to end them all on that, hopefully.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, awesome.
That'd be a pretty cool trademark to do at the end of every.
Hell yeah, man! Start a trend.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining, and definitely check out Josh's channel for sure if you guys are interested in GTOs or anything like that. And be sure to join the podcast on Monday at 9 p.m. And see you guys in the next video.
Thanks, guys.